Afternoon, everyone. Hope you're having a great time at Ignite. It's been such an energetic week, and I don't know about you, I've had the best time starting with the keynotes this morning. So much energy in the room, and we're so glad that you're here to join us, and I hope you have an amazing rest of the week. My name is Ikenna, and I lead product marketing for app modernization here at Microsoft, and I'm joined by my very good friends and colleagues.
Hey everyone, I'm Aarthi Murugan, part of the customer success team from the app innovation side.
And my name is Ayobami, and I'm part of Aarthi's team.
Amazing. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be with you all this afternoon, and we're grateful that you've taken the time to come join us in this conversation as we explore how to really power AI transformation by scaling through app modernization. In my day job, I have the unique privilege of working and interacting with customers across industries and across the globe. And one of the key things that we notice is modernization has become a critical part for customers, especially as they think of navigating and scaling their AI transformation projects. So before we dive in, let's kind of take stock, right? We are currently, and you heard Satya mentioned this at the keynote this morning, and also Scott Guthrie. We are currently living through one of the most transformative eras in technology, an era that is really defined by generative AI. And it's no longer something that is coming, it is literally here, and it's reshaping the ways we live, work, and even innovate at breakneck speed. Generative AI isn't just a piece of technology, it is literally a force multiplier, and it's revolutionizing industries and unlocking new business opportunities. And we know that intelligent applications isn't going to be optional. It is actually an imperative. But before we dive into how intelligence is redefining modern applications, let's take a minute to appreciate just the pace, the sheer pace of innovation that we're seeing and the trends we're seeing across the industry. Consider this. IDC forecasts that by 2028, over 1 billion logical applications will be built. That is 4 times the fold of applications that was built in the past decade, right? And even Forrester is also forecasting, as they're seeing customers are accelerating their investments towards modernization. And majority of this investment is geared toward infusing generative AI capabilities into their legacy applications, because we've noticed that it is not just about building new applications. A lot of businesses are thinking of how do we scale this innovation across our entire estate. And I'm sure a lot of you in this room also are going through the same sort of thoughts. And hopefully, during this session, we're able to explore how we can get you from where you currently are to your desired state. And as we think through all of the trends we see in the industry, right, and how AI is reshaping things, the most important question is how does this change or this transformation impact us? What does it mean for you and for your business, for your team, for your application? And we have 3 key areas that we think and we see that generative AI is really impacting the technology landscape. The first one is in building net new applications, which is this ground-up innovation, building new applications that are able to do things that we never thought were possible before, right? And we're seeing this already. The second piece is increasing the speed at which applications are modernized. And by modernization, how are they getting updated? How are they moving them to a platform that enables them with the right performance and the scalability to do the work that they are required to do? And then the third piece is around AI influencing how applications are being built, both in the developer workflows, the developer tool chain, and this is already, we're already seeing this like with the announcement with GitHub Copilot and other investments that we're making across the developer tool chain. AI is already influencing how applications are already being built, and we're just at the beginning of things. As you look across industries, the innovation that is happening is just remarkable. Exponential innovation is happening, and we see AI driving significant business benefits, right? Faster innovation cycles, improved customer satisfaction, and even creating net new revenue for businesses. And this is something that we're seeing across different companies, different geographies, and different industries. And we're just at the beginning of this. The result is going to be very tremendous. Now, we know that building intelligent apps isn't as easy as it is because there's still a lot of challenges that we need to jump through to get our innovation flywheel going. And the struggles that we see this across different industries, we see this across different customers. And one of the things at Microsoft, we are innovating on every level to help change this dynamic, learning from pioneers in the field and even from ourselves, Microsoft, because we've shipped to markets lots of generative AI intelligent applications from GitHub Copilot to ChatGPT to Microsoft Copilot and more. And from all of these projects, we are learning and developing and improving ourselves to help guide our customers as they navigate this era of change, this great experience that we're going through, because the transformation is real and it's happening already. Now, as we're trying to understand and learn from customers who have already begun experiencing the immense benefits from generative AI across their app estates, Microsoft, in conjunction with Forrester, sought to study companies who have gone through this modernization project, at least a wave of modernization projects, and we're already innovating across their enterprise to understand what were some of the key traits that were common across these companies. And three things actually stood very true across all of the 500 companies that we surveyed. The first one was there's a clear strategy built around AI and training. Right? That was the first one. The second one is an integrated metric that was tied to business outcomes around AI as well. Because what we're saying now, this is not just technology for technology's sake. It is technology to drive significant business outcomes. It's no longer the thing where we're just adopting a new technology because it's the new shiny thing. We're adopting it because there's a huge business outcome and a huge business paradigm that this new technology is driving. And then the third piece, of course, and this is where we're going to spend a good chunk of the time here today, is the upgraded stack backed by strategic partnership to help navigate and make this journey a lot more seamless. And from all the learnings from the different projects that we've had, even through our own projects in Microsoft and our modernization journey, we've realized that modernization isn't one and done. It is a continuous journey of innovation, a continuous journey of optimization, a continuous journey of improvement that requires a very programmatic approach, starting from assessment to the point of planning, to deploying, and even innovating and maintaining on the cloud. In this session, we're not going to go into each of the different sections, but if you really want to learn more about the assessment, which is where the modernization project starts, so you understand what you have within your estate, the dependencies, and how you should move your projects forward, there's a session that's going to be happening tomorrow, BRK 137, so feel free to check that out, and you learn all that Microsoft offers to help accelerate your assessment journey. Now, we know that in order to take advantage of this opportunity, like the study I just mentioned previously, there is a need for you to have a very strategic partnership with your technology providers. And that's what Microsoft helps do for you. Across the entire modernization lifecycle, Microsoft backs you up with the right resources, the right tools, the right experts to enable you move through your modernization efforts seamlessly and ensure that you have this constant flywheel of optimization and this constant flywheel of improvements. And throughout the session, my colleagues would show you how we can help you make that happen. I will now hand it off to Arti to take us along.
Thank you, Ikenna. So Ikenna has made a very good point about for AI transformation, modernization is the key. And there are different paths on the modernization journey that you can pick and choose, and Azure got you covered. And Azure provides you the end-to-end support, whether you are lift and shifting your applications from your current platform, or you are re-platforming with minimal code changes, or you are entirely rebuilding your apps in a cloud-native fashion. Let's take a deep dive into the re-platforming the applications. So the re-platforming approach is the easier and a quicker approach where you take your application, make some minimal code changes without completely redesigning it. The goal here is to optimize the application to leverage the benefits of managed PaaS without a complete redesign. We find a number of customers following this as their first approach because it gets them very faster onto their app modernization journey. However, there are some technical requirements that you need to consider. First, you need to assess your application and make sure your multiple app components fit into the newer compute platform. Migrate your databases or use the managed databases as well. And implement security controls and compliance measures. And don't forget to set up your observability and DevOps practices. It's essential to ground your strategy and also your technology decisions in several key factors. Consider your use case complexity and the desired business outcome. And next, focus on the desired application and your solution performance. Evaluate the productivity versus the control levels for the solution so that it aligns with your business roadmap. Now let's see how Scandinavian Airlines has modernized their applications. They have, using the replatforming strategy, they have moved hundreds of apps from their infrastructure as service to a fully managed PaaS. Let's watch the video.
Scandinavian Airlines, our focus is to make life easier for 30 million.
The airline industry is highly competitive. To be on the leading edge, we need to have systems available and adaptable to new markets and new deliveries.
This meant transforming the technologies that support and connect Scandinavian airline systems and services for greater scalability, efficiency, and security while paving the way for innovation.
We already had our services in the cloud, so moving from IaaS to serverless products was the next step. Microsoft supported us in the journey in assessing our applications, the migration path, and the target products that we should use.
We use Azure SQL services and Azure App Services, Defender for Cloud, as well as Application Gateway for migrating 25 applications. With support from Microsoft Customer Success Migration Factory, we did it quickly and without incident.
This shift has helped us to adopt more modern and agile DevOps workflows.
We have a better control over internal systems. We have a better reliability and resiliency, better control over our cost.
We can always scale it up and scale it down. So it's a much more flexible way of actually providing services and capacity.
Azure has given us the ability to develop new applications faster and also create things that makes life easier for our customers.
That's incredible, isn't it? We have seen how they have leveraged app services and also the managed databases using our migration factory to modernize their application platform. Now I would like to call upon my colleague Ayo to jump into the next strategy.
Awesome. Thanks, Aarti. All right, so we've talked about replatforming, but how do you take your application to the next level? Well, that's when we start talking about other strategies like re-architecting, which is what I'm going to be focusing on for the next few minutes. So re-architecting is an approach to modernizing applications and data, and it involves significant redesign of the existing application's architecture. This method upgrades an application significantly, making it better and making it be in a better position to run more efficiently on the cloud, as well as take advantage of a lot of the features and advantages of being on the cloud. All right, so what are some of the things you want to think about to consider when it comes to re-architecting? So for example, this approach involves modifying the application's code base, which could be quite a bit of a heavy lift. It involves adopting new architectural patterns. For example, you might want to go from a monolithic design to microservices as well as serverless and other modern architectures. You might also want to align with modern best practices and technologies, right? Things like event-driven communication among different services. You want to enhance your cloud compatibility. There's a lot of different approaches to that. For example, things like storing secrets securely within the cloud-provided services. You also want to address tech debt, right? So the last thing you want to do when you're modernizing your application is to continue to build on top of the tech debt. So what are some of the technical requirements that comes with this approach? You want to think about how do you want to decompose your application, right? The different ways you can do that, so that's something you want to identify right at the beginning. You also want to look at different frameworks and state management. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. You want to consider the database scaling requirements of your particular application. You want to make sure that you have really good continuous integration, continuous delivery, CI/CD strategies. Obviously, with the microservices and modern applications, you might have more pipelines than you might have previously. So this is something you want to seriously consider. You want to seriously consider API-driven development. This could actually involve like decoupling microservices, thinking about API-based interactions, and I'm going to be talking a little bit more about that in a second. But also, what's really important with this strategy is observability, right? So even though individual services might be less complex, because of the complex interactions among them, you need to have really good visibility within them, and this is something you need to consider at the very beginning. All right, so what are some of the ways you can implement this re-architecting service? Well, one of the ways is to re-architect to microservices, which is a popular architectural style for building applications that are resilient, highly scalable, independently deployable, and that allows you to evolve quickly. A microservice architecture consists of a collection of small autonomous services, and each one of them should be self-contained, and also they could take care of a single business capability, for example. Why would we want to go through the trouble of doing this? Well, there's a lot of benefits to that. For example, agility. Because microservices are deployed independently, you can actually have small focus teams focused on particular services, which allows them to innovate and get to the next level much, much quickly. You also have independent teams, so they can actually work independently as long as things like data contracts and API design practices are being followed. Also, the code base is a lot smaller. What that actually means is, since it's smaller, the application team only have to focus on a subset of the entire application's code, as opposed to having to worry too much about dependencies within that code. And finally, it allows you to mix technologies. So for example, you can do things like have components of your application running as functions. You can take other cloud services like Logic Apps, which can really speed up your development process. You can also use different programming languages, for example. But with these benefits comes some challenges that you definitely want to consider right up front. For example, complexity. Even though each microservice might be less complex than a monolithic version of that application, because you have so many of them and the way they communicate with each other, this could lead to additional complexity that you want to take care of. Also, lack of governance. If you have different independent teams working their own different ways, it might be more difficult to govern them. So this is something to definitely take into consideration. Network congestion and latency. Because you have different services communicating not within the processes, but across the network, this could lead to some network congestion issues. And then finally, management. You want to make sure that things like your API design are sound and following best practices and really good DevOps culture. Okay, so that sounds like a lot of work, right? How do you actually, another approach to really consider is API-first development. So this basically prioritizes design and development of APIs before development of the UI, which makes API the foundation of the application's architecture. A study by Postman in 2003 actually showed that this approach helps you integrate with partners faster. So for example, if you're building APIs that you expect other partners or other customers to ingest, by taking this approach, it helps you get there faster. It also helps you launch products faster using best practices. You generally tend to create better software, and it also eliminates security risks because you have to consider all that upfront at the very beginning before you get too deep into the development. Okay, so in addition to that, when you're thinking about modernization, it's not just about the application. You also have to think about the database as well. There's a lot of things to consider, things like understanding the application's requirement, evaluating AI capabilities of whatever data service you might be using. And this would actually make it so much easier for you to get to that next level of modernization. You want to think about other things like, aligning to your particular use case, integrating with existing systems and things like that. Okay, but that sounds like a lot of work. How do you actually achieve this? We've talked about the benefits of this, but it sounds like a lot of complexity. Well, AI actually helps you get there so much faster, right? So there's a lot of things that AI can actually help you with within the development lifecycle. It can help you with things like building, testing, as well as deployment, right? So it actually helps you write code a lot faster by providing suggestions. It makes it super easy to migrate code from one environment to another. It helps you debug really quickly, generates unit tests. We all know how much fun writing unit tests are. But with AI, you can automate that entire process. Things like sysadmin scripting makes it so much easier. It can actually be automated. Obviously, a lot of these technology are co-pilots. You want to make sure that you're evaluating them, not just copy-pasting them directly, but AI definitely speeds up that process for you. Okay, so how does this actually come together? We do have GitHub Copilot, which allows you to take advantage of those benefits that I just mentioned and helps automate the process of make the process of getting to that level so much faster. So GitHub Copilot has a lot of features. It first got generally available last year. In a world where every organization is becoming a technology company, looking to being able to develop apps and solutions to power their business, GitHub Copilot actually provides an AI-paired programmer that dramatically accelerates developer productivity. In fact, one of the tests surveys that we did actually yielded the result that it helped write code 55% faster. We actually found that 46% of the code written by the organizations that we surveyed was actually written by AI. So you can imagine the level of productivity that actually comes with that. In addition to that, debugging, no one really likes to debug, to spend too much time with that. AI is actually able to make the developer workflow much more interesting. They're able to focus on more interesting things. They can focus on innovation as opposed to spending time having to debug and do things that are not quite as interesting, which has led to an increase in developer satisfaction. In addition to that, we actually recently announced new features within GitHub during the last GitHub Universe conference we had. And some of them included new features like some support for other models. So you don't only have to use the model that comes by default with GitHub Copilot, you're actually able to connect to new models. For example, Anthropic. Gemini is going to be supported pretty soon. It also allows for multi-file editing. So the existing GitHub Copilot focuses on one file at a time, but the new announcement, you can actually edit multiple files at the same time. Things like custom instruction, which basically allows you to configure the way the code generated by the Copilot. You can actually use markdown files to provide custom instructions that would then format the way the application code is generated by the AI. And it also allows you to create new apps. So you can actually have boilerplate apps, generate those boilerplate apps for you to help you get there faster. Okay, but none of this actually works without trust, right? We all know security is super important. Like Satya mentioned during the keynote, security is our #1 priority. How are we able to ensure that these AI services are secure and they follow the best practices? Well, we have a lot of commitments around that. First of all, I'd like to start with the Secure Feature Initiative, which underscores the company's wide commitment and responsibility we feel to make our customers more secure. Privacy is another key pillar of trustworthy AI. We make sure that we're not using customer data to train our models, so you don't have to worry about that. It is a foundation of AI, so Microsoft's priority is to make sure that you don't have to worry about that. And finally, data responsible AI principles. So Microsoft continues to follow responsible AI principles. All right, so the final pillar is trustworthy AI. So Going a little bit deeper into our Secure Future initiative. So we do have three main pillars of the Secure Future initiative: secure by design, secure by default, and secure operations. And we do have sections where we're going to be talking a little bit deeper into that. But I just wanted to let you know that security is something that we take very seriously at Microsoft, and it is a foundational requirement within our organization. And we've been taking these steps since we started this program, and we've continued to expand it over the last few months. So how do you take the full advantage and the full advantage of AI? What are the key drivers of AI value? So there's a lot of different ways you can get value from AI, not just within the developer workflow, but when we think about organization and culture, you want to make sure that you have an established operation model to industrialize and enable the adoption and use of AI, and has your leadership clearly communicated that the models and vision from the top down. When it comes to business strategy, you want to ask the question, what type of business outcomes are you focused on driving, and have you determined how AI can help you achieve those outcomes? So from applied AI experiences, have you examined how diverse and skilled your organization processes are with AI? Also, are you actively encouraging cross-team collaboration so that everyone can build experiences while using AI that would actually help you realize the value? And finally, when it comes to AI governance, are you implementing processes and controls as well as responsible AI practices? Microsoft is a really good blueprint for you. You can actually take a look at our documentation around our Secure Future initiative, and that could actually be a really good template for you to have the right AI governance. Lastly, when it comes to your technology strategy, have you enabled your organizations to have access to quality and comprehensive, high-quality data that is required for AI transformation? So these are the really important drivers to consider when you're looking at adopting AI within your organization. So we talked about re-platforming, and then we talked about re-architecting. But there's another pillar you probably want to look into to get your applications to the next level. How do you then drive and build intelligence into your app? Well, with Azure AI Platform, it actually enables you to get so much more intelligence as well as get tailored output from our AI models. But it's also important to remember that the opportunity with AI is so much more expansive than just generative AI. So let's take a closer look at the tools and services that can bring you to take full advantage of the AI transformation. So Azure does have a full AI platform. There's a lot of different services that you can actually combine and put together to develop your AI services. Let's start with Azure AI Language. This is a service that allows you to take text, any kind of text, and you can actually extract keywords, for example, from it. So what does that actually mean? For example, if you have text, you're able to extract things like location, maybe entities, things like that. This model actually allows you to automatically do that. Azure AI Translate allows you to very easily, within a few lines of code, translate languages from one text from one language to another. Azure AI Speech, you can actually create applications where you can have the application actually speak to you, or you can communicate with the application using voice. You don't have to develop that yourself. Azure AI Vision allows you to do a lot of things like describe things within pictures, for example, or detect things like faces within pictures. Azure OpenAI Services allows you to use generative AI to enhance your application by giving you access to the best large language model and so on. So there's a lot of different services here that you can definitely take a look at. And each one of these services actually provide unique value that can help get your application to the next level. So how do we start thinking about the actual use cases? Well, these examples here are some of the examples that we found that a lot of our customers are using. For example, enterprise chat. which can actually be used for enhanced knowledge mining. By building applications that leverage this, that leverages AI, you can actually have your employees get more insights from your even unstructured data much quickly. Speech analysis, you can actually do things like taking audio data from your organization and actually using them to get insights and enhance your customer experiences as well as your employee experiences. You can build your own Copilot by customizing the Microsoft 360 Copilot and actually enable unique features or things within your organization. Content generation can be quite tedious sometimes. So you can actually build AI apps that helps you generate things like blog posts, news articles, things like that. And then you can also use the AI to provide hyper-personalized experiences for your customers. And we've actually found that this personalization actually helps improve customer experience. All right. So what are the Azure services that enable you to do that? So we talked about the AI services. Let's talk a little bit about the application platform. We do have services like Azure Kubernetes Service, which is a complete control and quickest way to get started developing and deploying intelligent cloud-native applications on Azure, on your data centers, or even at the edge. Applications are best backed by Azure storage, like Azure Cosmos DB. You can save a lot of expenses by persistent embeddings within your queries, which actually means that you wouldn't have to, for example, query those AI services more often than you have to, because you can actually store a lot of that information within your Cosmos DB database, vector database. We also have, this is also supported by Azure SQL as well as Azure Postgres. So I've talked quite a bit about the AI services, so I won't spend too much time on that as well. But bringing it all together, how do we actually get started on this? I'll pass it back to Aarti, who's going to tell us how we can get started.
Hey, thanks, Ayo. All right, so we have seen the different strategies on the modernization side. However, we need to have these apps running reliably, right? So building reliable systems is a shared responsibility. As you move to cloud, the fundamentals and the hardware, it is built and operated by Microsoft, and the responsibility is on us. And next up, all the services that are built by Microsoft and operated by you, and this is where your responsibility comes in. We are not leaving you just like that, but we have given you guidance in the form of cloud adoption framework, well-architected framework, and landing zone accelerators, and many more guidances in terms of enterprise app patterns. So now let's jump into the well-architected framework where the reliability comes into picture, right? So this provides our customers the best-in-class guidance to improve their workload quality. And how do we achieve this? One, you can build your robustness and also with resiliency. Resiliency pulls from all these major pillars. Having said that, let's jump into the application resiliency. Here we are focusing on 5 key elements. The first and foremost is the redundancy. How do we enable the zonal redundancy and the multi-regional enablement so that we combat the zonal and the regional failures? And in the security standpoint, say for example, if your workload is container heavy, are you having the right container scanning strategies implemented? How are you storing your secrets in a best possible practices like managed identities are implemented and health checks are implemented? Now, let's jump into the infrastructure side, right? So I was talking about the zonal enablement. Here we are looking at the availability zone as the infrastructure foundational essentials. For example, in this picture, we have resources deployed at least in one zone. If the zone 2 goes down, 3/5 of my resources will be down. To protect against that, you want to have your PaaS services enabled with their zonal redundancy and have all the zonal resources like VMs deployed in multiple zones. So this is really important when it comes to the infrastructure resiliency aspect. After the infrastructure is done, now let's look at the dev essentials. There are 4 key topics: the DevOps. How are you handling your deployment pipelines? How are the configurations are managed? And on the security side, like I mentioned before, how are the secrets are handled and how the different services are talking to each other? And on the monitoring side, are you implementing the right level of informations are tracked so that you have a centralized monitoring governance put in place, so when there is an outage, you are in a better position to troubleshoot and have a better resiliency plan in place. And from the reliability pattern side, are you leveraging the best-in-class reliability patterns like retry logic, circuit breakers, health point checks, all implemented in? Now, like the famous saying goes, health is wealth. It's not just for the body, it's also for the apps. How do you start? It all starts with a well-architected reliability assessment. You start with the application resiliency, handle your day-to operations, leverage the reliability engineering services like load testing and Chaos Studio, and also we have a bunch of app health tools as well. I would like to focus on the Azure platform accelerators here. For example, when you are moving to Azure, your app is all ready. Have you made it production ready? That is where the Azure landing zones comes into place, and the landing zone accelerators comes at the application workload level. And you can leverage the enterprise app patterns to re-platform both your .NET and the Java apps with the proven guidance. And we also have got some bunch of application resiliency tools. Azure Verified module, it is a library with infrastructure as code files in both Bicep and Terraform, built following the WAF principles. And we have got the Azure Proactive Resiliency library. It is a comprehensive set of recommendations that is available for all the Azure services. And finally, on the observability side, we have the Azure Monitor baseline alerts that provides the metrics and guidelines for all the Azure services as well. There is going to be a breakout session happening on these different tools, where you will be given a deep dive on the various tools here and with the demo as well. But right now, we have talked much, so let's jump into a small demo. Is it working? Oops. All right. So I have my application, intelligent application, deployed in my app service. And you can see here, this is my app, the flashy retail app here. Next week is Thanksgiving. I want to make sure my application is up and running. And it has a AI chat assistant as well built in. But right now, I want to make sure it doesn't fail next week with the peak load coming in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the Azure Proactive Resiliency library. As you can see here, it has got recommendations for multiple Azure resources, but I am interested in strengthening my resiliency for app service. So I'm going into Web Server Forms. Here are the top recommendations. The first top recommendation is enabling your availability zone, as well as on the auto scaling side, they have asked us to enable as well. So now I'm going to jump into my app service plan. I'm going to check my settings, how it has been set up, have I enabled my app service scale out here. All right, so my app service has not been set up for auto scaling. So I'm going to set it up for auto scaling with an instance up to 3, so that it can be able to handle my load, and then I click save. Oops. All right. I need to check in here. Oh, okay. So now the scale out operation is going to happen, and it will set up the auto scaling enable for me. So leverage these libraries and the set of tools that we have shared here, and build up your resiliency on your apps so your application is ready for production. and you're all set for success. So with that, we would like to wrap up here. So we have covered the different modernization strategies and how you can build resiliency to your application up and running in the production. Over to you, Ikenna.
Thank you, Arti. I'm sure a number of you will be asking, this is so much information. And that's the truth about modernization. It can be very complex and also very nuanced. But here is the key takeaway, right? Plan out your modernization efforts in waves. Don't try to take everything in one chunk, right? Start by assessing the entire app estate with a holistic view. Break that down into waves, just so that it's easy for you to test, prove value, get some outcomes, learn, iterate, and then move forward. Identify key areas where AI can really make significant difference for you within your business, understanding the sort of AI use cases and the opportunities you have within the business. And of course, start with those simpler applications that are easy to refactor and move to the cloud. Ayo mentioned GitHub Copilot. Wherein possible, leverage generative AI workflows within your developer toolchain to help move your teams forward a lot faster. Tools like GitHub Copilot really makes that easy. Automate your dev workflows, making it easy for both your devs and your IT ops teams to operate seamlessly, take away the drudgery of their work, just so that they're able to stay excited and do meaningful work for you. And then finally, and this is really key, and you heard Satya mention this today, skilling cannot be overemphasized. In fact, before this session, I was speaking to a partner and a customer from the African region, and one of the things they had said is, with AI, there is a huge skilling gap, right? And we know that a lot of us are feeling it, right? So investing in skilling really, really helps make that difference. And Microsoft also provides you with a lot of resources to help enable and skill your teams. And as you think through your modernization efforts, Azure Innovate is a great place to track your projects. So scan the QR code, learn about Azure Innovate. It's a hero offering that gets you resources, funding, technical expertise to help drive those projects forward, right? And we have the backing with Microsoft. Like I mentioned at the beginning, strategic partnership to help move your projects forward a lot easier. And Microsoft is here to actually help. Microsoft, alongside our vast ecosystem of partners, we're here to help you move those projects forward. You don't need to go on this by yourself, alone. We can actually help with it. Again, a lot of things to go through, a lot of planning, a lot of strategizing, there's a lot to do, but we can help make that forward. So if you have any questions, we're more than happy to take any questions you may have. Else you can also meet us up at the hub on the 3rd floor. We have a booth there, the Java.NET App Modernization booth. Come in there, we'd have partners who are also able to answer those questions, and we're able to help provide you as much resource that you need to help move your projects forward. And whilst you're here at Ignite and looking for more sessions to learn and continue your learning curve, we have a couple of options here for you, both from theater sessions to breakout sessions to labs, and you can really get your hands on it. The Lab 408, we go into how to assess your applications. You would assess applications using our first-party tooling and then deploy them to an Azure environment, one of our app service on Azure. So feel free, leverage all these experiences, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of Ignite. Thank you so much for taking the time.